When I was a young junior or boy or man, I was one time at a training camp with Bent Larsen, the legendary Danish grandmaster who was in the world elite in the 60s and 70s and a little part of the 80s. And he was a really impressive person. He had a lot to teach people, and he wrote a lot of very good books, a lot of very nice articles. And today we're going to celebrate Bent Larsen a little bit with a good tale from that junior camp. He was showing a game. He won against a guy called Saidy, Antony Fred Saidy, and Bent Larsen is white. And he was showing this game to explain a concept. The concept that Nimzowitsch coined is playing on a specific color. Playing on a specific color. But he didn't tell us that. He just started showing the game, and then and the funny thing is, at this chess camp, Curt Hansen was also present here, and Curt Hansen had just overtaken Bent Larsen in chess ratings, and the contrast between these two men was really staggering, because Bent Larsen was like showing everything, big showman, loved to be on the scene, and Curt Hansen has always been a sort of a quiet man, a little bit reserved. It doesn't like to take the sort of the center of the stage, and he would never yell at anybody. I think, and he was present while Bent Larsen showed this, because everybody wants to see Bent Larsen. Even I think even the top players found him very entertaining, and he knew extremely an extreme amount of things about chess. Anyway, he's white here. This is the Slav or slave. I don't never know what it's called, and this is known, I think, as the Schlechter variation. Smyslov was a big expert. It's a bit passive with the pawn here on c6, but it's kind of solid. Nothing bad will happen to black for a long time. I played this a few times, and usually it will be a draw. Casa, and of course white should be slightly better with a little bit more space. He has these two pawns here, and controls a little bit more space. But black's position is solid. Bishop f5, that is probably not a good move. I think the main line are bishop d4 or a6 or take on c4. The problem with the move is that white takes here, and now we would like to take back with the pawn, but after you take back with the pawn comes queen b3, and that is annoying because it's hitting this pawn here that black just left with the bishop going here. So this would be a bit annoying. If you go b6, then the white squares will be weak. Okay, so he took with the knight. This is also like Grinfeld. Maybe I should show that he did this. It's like the last move, and of course he opened for this bishop on g7, but he did also sort of lose ground in the center, and if white can get a strong center, he should be better. Queen b3, attacking this pawn. We just saw that this was the problem with the bishop to f5. Knight b6, covering the pawn. This is usually quite a good square for black's knight in the Grünfeld, but here with the pawn on c6 is a bit passive. Rook d1. Here is of course a good move. White is bolstering this pawn here, and there is also the X-ray effect here, and white is of course planning to play something like e3, e4, and use his space advantage to try and push black back. Bishop e6, and black is hitting the queen here. And it has to go, but it's not a problem. And bishop c4, and black would like to exchange some pieces because he has less space, but white's space advantage will keep on being there, and without the bishops there will be less dynamics. So white is slightly but clearly better here, and Larsen is just playing normal good moves, bolstering the center. Even though Larsen was a very creative player who played a lot of things in the opening, he of course could also play in old-fashioned classical style like this, where you get a slight space advantage and you try to increase it. Queen c7. Maybe black is hoping to get in e5. Larsen is so far not so afraid of it. I don't think it works that well anyway. Rook c8, and now he decided that it's time to get the bishop out of the way, and he took, and queen b8, and we're going to say the last move here. If we see this position, of course, black is still quite solid, but he has at this classical disadvantage that white controls, with yellow, all the squares up to the fourth rank, and black only controls all the squares up to the third rank, and then we are fighting around the fifth rank, and this is a problem because it makes white's job much easier. He can sort of easily shift from side to side. And here he goes a4. And by the way, Larsen really loved to push his pawns on the edge of the board. And he was always talking about he would write a book about it, but he never did, and it never came. So maybe someone else should write it. And nowadays, it's of course very well known that pushing the A pawn and even getting the G pawn going is very popular nowadays. Okay, knight f6, a3, keeping the knight out of keeping the knight out of this square here. And also it makes sense to have it on white, so this bishop is not bothered. Rook fd8, a5. Pushing the knight back, and here Larsen decides, okay, I cannot really improve my position anymore. I have to do something to make something of my initiative. So e5, and this bishop down here is getting weak. Knight d5. Okay, and I think Saidy was sort of following the old maxim that if you're worse, you should just exchange pieces. And here comes take, bishop d5, hitting the pawn here on e7, and trying to do something before black gets his piece out. If, for instance, black should play rook e8, then white might take over the c-file by taking and playing the other rook in and playing queen c2, and then invading on c7. I can show the line. Okay, if he did this, you could probably do this. He has to take with the queen, otherwise this pawn is hanging. And here just rook c1 taking over the c-file, and after something like this, the queen would be coming here, and it would be very annoying for black, who will probably lose material. So this is very typical, by the way, and something to be careful. So rook e8 is not good. Bishop f8 might run into e6. So black played f6, which is a sensible move. Take, and here it's white to move. And it's clear that he has to decide if he wants to give a check, or we can just say the last move was this. If he wants to give a check, or he wants to play the bishop back, or he wants to exchange rooks, or what does he want to do? There are many options here. And Larsen was asking the audience, what do you think, guys? What should white play here, and why? And we were trying to see if we could win a pawn or what to do, and then we just finally it sort of settled that this move was probably strong, attacking the queen, and Larsen asked, yes, and which concept do you use here? And we were all very confused. And Kurt Hansen was also asked, and he couldn't answer. And it was sort of a little bit embarrassing for him that the last was saying, yeah, every Danish player should know this because due to Nimzowitsch. And then he went on to explain about this playing on a specific color. I think this example is not very good actually because white is quite an open board. But of course it makes sense if white could kick the queen into a8, then he can attack on the black squares, which is the point of the thing, is to move the queen away from the black squares because white is trying to attack on the black squares. And I thought the example was not very good, but then Larsen said something very interesting that has stayed with me forever, and I have used it in many games. He said that when you are attacking the king, and you have to decide which square to put your queen, always put it on the same color as the opponent's king. Always put it on the same color as the opponent's king, because that will double the amount of checks you have. And I thought, oh, that's far out, and can that really be true? And that sounded really sort of academic to me. But I've since realized that it's true. So when you're in doubt and you're attacking, just put the queen on the same color as the opponent's king. There are a million exceptions, and usually there are a lot of variations. But this was one of the good things about playing on color. I think later on on GM Talks we will see a game where this playing on a color is really shown to full effect. It will be a Karpov versus Kasparov game that's called the White Symphony, and it's quite amazing where white only plays on the white squares. Okay, so he played this move. Moving back is not fun, so he took it and lost a pawn. And I say the thing is, the sort of the lecture is over here. We heard what Larsen had to say. Put the queen on the same color as the king, or play on specific colors. By the way, this Nimzowitsch guy, I thought he is funny because all this the free pawn should be locked up. It's a criminal and stuff like that. It's kind of funny, but it's also not very useful to explain things in a way that makes it hard to understand. So I think a lot of Nimzowitz's concepts were correct, but he didn't explain them very well, even though his book, My System, is very famous. Anyway, here you get and he said double attack on here, well, triple attack. So you'll have to go back, and white has won a pawn. There are some slight technical problems here, but it should be winning for white. And Larsen was actually excellent in converting an advantage. Queen b5, keeping control over the white squares here that are now it's the white squares that are important. Queen a4, bishop f8, d5, and he's just saying, okay, you can have the black squares, I will sit on the white squares. Attacking this pawn, and this and giving up this pawn. Of course, he cannot take it; it would be too dangerous. But this was one of Larsen's very strong things that I noticed in his game, was that he was not afraid to change the position if he needed to change it to win. Queen e4, getting ready for d6. Black should probably try and take the pawn, and black will go d6, and white will go d6, and it will be dangerous. Or maybe knight d4. He went back. d4, and Larsen is improving the position for the king. He's getting ready to stand on d2. He says there's nothing to see on the black squares. I'm not afraid. I will just get ready, and maybe someday I'll play d5. And here he's attacking the pawn here, which would be a disaster, and just king d2. And it looks like white has sort of messed it up, but this position is actually very bad for black, who's very passive. And after this move, he just he simply just lost because now it threatens mate and he cannot move the bishop because there's a check. And after this move came rook c1 uh, and Saidy, who's losing everything, gave up. He could play queen d8 and then the rook would come in. And he can't take because of mate on f8. He can't play rook d7 because it's of the check here. And so basically white just wins at least a piece. Well, it's I don't know if it's a piece. It's a piece if you lose the queen. Anyway, this was an interesting game from Larsen. Maybe not the best game, and I thought the example was not really good, but the commentary from Bent Larsen way back when it was somewhere I think around 90 or something, and Bent Larsen was really making a show at this Chile Efterskole where the training took place with a lot of young players. I think Peter Heine was also there. And other who became IAMs later. Anyway, thank you for watching. This was GM Talks. If you like these, there will be more Bent Larsen stories for sure. He's one of my heroes, and he's Danish, and he was a world-class player. So we will hear more about him. I have a lot of stories about him. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hope to see you soon. This was GM Talks with your host, Sune Berg Hansen.